Hello everyone, welcome again to my YouTube channel. During the lockdown period, the teaching and learning is taking place with the digital mode, and of course, a lot of planning is required on the teacher's part to plan the activities. I have planned here one activity based on the peer learning, which is known as more learning through autonomy, and here it is more student centered learning, which is known as a collaborative learning, and psychology proves that peer learning is a better learning than teacher student learning. So, this project is basically based on this concept. The project goes like this. Thank
Hi guys, my given topic is Prinsep and Piyadasi. So the first point is 1830 James Prinsep. In 1830, James Prinsep, an officer of the East India Company, deciphered Brahmi and Karasuti. He found that most of these mentioned a king refers to as Piyadasi, meaning pleasant to behold. And the second point is Ashoka. He was the most famous ruler known from Buddhist texts. And the third point is Indian scholars. Indian scholars used inscriptions and texts composed in a variety of languages to reconstruct the lineages of major dynasties that had ruled the subcontinent. As a result, the broad contours of political history were in place by the decades of the 20th century. So the fourth point is political history. Scholars began to shift their focus to the context of the political history, investigating whether there were connections between political changes and economic and social development. And it was soon realized that while there were links, these were not always simple and direct. So guys, that's all in this topic. Thank you.
2.1 The 16 Mahajanapadas. The 6th century BCE is regarded as a major turning point in early Indian history. The most important Mahajanapadas were Vaji, Magda, Kaushala, Kuru, Panchal, Gandhar, and Avanti. The Mahajanapadas were a set of 16 kingdoms that existed in ancient India. It all began when the Janas of the late Vedic period decided to form their own territorial communities, which eventually gave rise to new settlements called the Janapadas. It was an era associated with early states, cities, the growing use of iron, and the development of coinage. Most Mahajanapadas were ruled by kings, some known as Ganas or Sanghas. Some states maintained permanent standing armies recruited from the peasantry and regular bureaucracies. Dharma and Sutra were the norms laid down for king and other people. Rulers were advised to collect taxes and tributes from cultivators, traders, and artisans. Thank you.
2.2 First among the 16 Magad. Between the 6th and 4th century BCE, Magad became the most powerful and important Mahajanpadas. So, what are the factors responsible for the rise of Magad? So, first one is highly fertile land. Magad was a region where agriculture was especially productive. The Magad lands were very fertile due to its location between the river Ganga and the sun. Second one is ability of iron ore. In Magad, iron mines were accessible and provided resource for tools and weapons which make dynasty strong and stable. Third one is an important component of the army. Elephants are the important component of the army. Fourth point is Ganga as a mean of transportation and communication. The Ganga and its tributaries has provided a mean of cheap and convenient communication. Fifth one is ambitious ruler. The ambitious king of such as Bimsara and his son Ajitshatru Mahapadmananda are the best known and their ministers who helped to implement their policies. Sixth one is rich culture tradition of the area. The Magadhan traditions which include Buddhism, Jainism and Ajivika. Seventh one is the ruler policy according to Buddhist and Jain literature. Buddhist and Jain writer who wrote about the Magad attributed its power to the policies of individuals. Buddhism and Jainism were the religions promoted by the early Magadhan kings.
3.1 Finding out about the Mauryas. Historians have used a variety of sources to reconstruct the history of the Mauryas Empire. Archaeological facts such as sculpture, the amount of Meghdana's valuables are contemporary works, the Arthashastra parties of which were probably composed by Guptas and Chanukyas. The Mauryas are mentioned in later Buddhism Puranic literature as well as in Sanskrit literary works. Description of Shok c. 272/268 to 231 BCE on rocks and pillars are the most valuable source. Ashok was the first ruler who inscribed this message to his subject and official on stone surface as well as in pillars. He used inscription to proclaim what he understood to be dharmas. This includes respect towards elders, generosity towards brahmanas, treat slaves kindly, and respect for religions and traditions other than one's own.
3.2 Administering the Empire. Five major political centers. There were five major political centers in the empire: the capital Patliputra and the provincial center of Taxila, Ujjaini, Toshali, and Swarnagiri, all mentioned in Ashoka inscription. Taxila and Ujjaini. These centers were carefully chosen, both Taxila and Ujjaini being situated on important long distance trade route. Golden Mountain. While Swarnagiri, literally the Golden Mountain, was possibly important for tapping the gold mine of Karnataka. Military activities. Megasthenes has mentioned a concluding committee with 6 subcommittees for coordinating military activities. One looked after the navy, second managed transport and provisions, third was responsible for foot soldiers, fourth horses, fifth for chariots, and sixth for elephants. Message of Dhamma. Special officers known as the Dhamma Mahamata were appointed to spread the message of Dhamma.
So let's start with 3.3. How important was the empire? This is a question form of subtopic. We will conclude it into an answer by these 3 points. These 3 points are interconnected to each other. So let me start with the very first one: reconstruction of early Indian history in 19th century. This is simple that historians began reconstructing early Indian history in 19th century, but as I told you, this is interconnected. This is how they found the emergence of Mauryan Empire, which is regarded as a major landmark. That was because they lasted for 150 years. They had a very long history to be discovered. Then what did they discover? We will find it in archaeological findings. So in archaeological findings, they basically found the sculptures, stones, and the arts of Mauryan Empire. So every empire have their own form of art. So Mauryans also had their one. And the second thing they majorly focused on was the Ashoka's rule. What did Ashoka do? How did he became so inspiring? He had Ashokan inscriptions. We have a map here which shows the Ashokan inscription. You can go through, and that's where you conclude this into an answer. You can make it in a point, and you're clear with how important was the empire.
point, new notions of kingship. 4.1 Chiefs and kings in the south. Kingdoms in Deccan Plateau. The new kingdoms that emerged in the Deccan and further south, including the chiefdom of the Cholas, Cheras, and Pandyas in Tamilkan. Tamil Sankam text. The early Tamil Sankam texts contain poems. Chief and the distributed resources contain poem describing chiefs and the way in which they acquired and distributed resources. Revenue from long distance trade. A people of Central Asian who established kingdoms in the north, west and west part of the subcontinent derived revenue from long distance trade, obscuring the social organ. The social organ were often obscured, but as we will see in the case of the Satavahanas, social status in society, the acquired power they attempt to claim social status in a variety of ways.
4.2 Divine Kings Reconstruction of History. Their history has been reconstructed from inscription and textile tradition, coins and sculpture. The notion of the kingship they wish to project and perhaps best evidenced in their coins and sculpture. Son of God. Many Kushwana rulers also adopted the title of Devaputra or Son of God, possibly inspired by Chinese rulers who also called themselves Son of Heaven. Evidence of larger states. By the 14th century, there is evidence of larger states, including Gupta Empire. History of Gupta rulers. History of Gupta rulers have been reconstructed from literature, coins, and inscription.
5.1 Popular perceptions of kings. Jatakas and Panchatantra. It means these are the compilation of stories of Buddhist and Jaina times. Gandhatindu Jataka. It describes about the plight of the bad and evil kings. It includes the common person also. Stories indicate relation between kings and citizens. It means kings imposed heavy taxes on the rural societies. This disturbed their lifestyles. Historians examined that stories to know about kings. Inscription didn't tell all about the kings, so historians have tried to solve this problem by examining stories contained in anthologies. Strategies were also told in the stories for production. It means strategies told in the stories were aimed at increasing production to meet growing demand for taxes.
5.2 Strategies for increasing production. Shift to plug agriculture. In this, the king demanded money from ordinary people, so they had only two options: either they can go to the jungle or increase their production, so they shifted to plug agriculture. This spread in fertile river valley Ganga and Kaveri. In this, the plug agriculture spread vastly in river valley because of fertile alluvial soil. Iron-tipped ploughshare was used to turn alluvial soil. In this, they used iron-tipped ploughshare as this made plugging easy. Northeastern and central part used hoe agriculture. In this, the hilly tracts areas northeastern and central practiced hoe agriculture. Irrigation wells and tanks canals were used. In this, to increase in production, irrigation wells, tanks and canals become more popular.
5.3 Difference in rural area increasing in production. When they have technology, they increase their production. Gahapati was a owner, minister or head of a household who exercised control over a woman, children, slave. The large landholder, also known as a head village, he controlled over the small village and slave. Earlier Tamil literature also mentioned a different category of people living in the village. Differences were based on land, labor and some of new technology.
4. land grants, and new rural elites. Inscriptions were made. From the early centuries of the Common Era, we find grants of land being made. Some of these inscriptions were on stone, but most were on copper plates. Sanskrit legal texts. According to Sanskrit legal texts, women were not supposed to have independent access to resources such as land. Their rural population. This included Brahmins and peasants as well as others who were expected to provide a range of produce to the king or his representatives. Regional variations in the size of land, it ranging from small plots to vast stretches of uncultivated land, and the rights given to dunes. Impact of land grants. The impact of land grants is a subject of heated debate among historians. Kings were losing controls. As kings were losing controls over their samantas, they tried to win allies by making grants of land. They also feel that kings tried to project themselves as supermen because they were losing control.
6.1 New cities. Urban centers. Urban centers that emerged in several parts of the subcontinent from approximate 6th century before Common Era. Mahajanpadas. Many of these urban centers were the capitals of Mahajanpadas. Virtually all major towns were located along the routes of communication. Patliputra, Ujjaini, and Puhar. Patliputra were in riverine routes, others, such as Ujjaini, were along land routes, and yet others, such as Puhar, were near the coast from where the sea routes began. Busting centers. Many cities like Mathura were busting centers of commercial, cultural, and political activity. 6.2 Urban population, elites and craftspersons. Fortified cities. We have seen that kings and ruling elites lived in fortified cities. Extensive excavation. Although it is difficult to conduct extensive excavations at most sites because people live in these areas even today. Artifacts recovered. A wide range of artifacts have been recovered from them. These include fine pottery bowls and dishes with a glossy finish known as northern lac polished ware, probably used by the rich people. Votive inscriptions. By the 2nd century BCE, we find short votive inscriptions in a number of cities. These mention the name of the donor and sometimes specify his or her occupation as well.
My topic is trade in the subcontinent and beyond. Spices in high demand. Spices, especially pepper, were in high demand in the Roman Empire, as were textiles and medicinal plants. Land and river routes crisscross the subcontinent. From the 6th century BCE, land and river routes crisscrossed the subcontinent and extended in various directions. Merchants designated as Mazatuan. Successful merchants designated as Mazatuan in Tamil and Setis and Satvahas in Prakrit could become enormously rich. Ventures were risky but highly profitable. There are seafarers whose ventures were risky but highly profitable. My second point is coins and kings. Numismatists have studied these and other coins to reconstruct possible commercial networks. Coins made of silver. Punch-marked coins made of silver and copper were amongst the earliest to be minted and used. First gold coin issued. The first gold coin were issued 1st century CE by Kushvahans. Suggestion of Maurya. Maurya suggests that they were issued by kings. It is also likely that
merchants, bankers, and town people issued some these coins. Thank you.
Deciphering Brahmi. First point is Asokan inscription. Most scripts used to write modern Indian languages are derived from Brahmi. The script used in most Asokan inscription. Second point, European scholars added by Indian Pandits. From the late 18th century, European scholars aided by Indian Pandits work backward from contemporary Bengali and Devanagari. Third point is decipher Asokan Brahmi. It was only after decades of painstaking investigations by several epigraphics that James Prinsep was able to decipher Asokan Brahmi in 1830. How Kharosthi was read. First point, decipherment of Kharosthi. The decipherment of Kharosthi, the script used in inscription in the northwest, is different. Second point, coins of Indo-Greek. Coins of Indo-Greek kings who ruled over the area have facilitated matters. Point 3. Apollodotus. For instance, the symbol for a could be found in both scripts for writing names such as Apollodotus. Fourth point is inscription as Prakrit. With Prinsep identifying the languages of the Kharosthi inscription as Prakrit, it became possible to read longer inscription as well. Thank you.
Let's quickly start with 7.3 historical evidences from inscriptions. We have 4 points here. Let's go for the very first one to find out how epigraphs and historians work. To know that, go through source number 10 of page number 47 on your book. So they noted that ruler's name Ashoka is not mentioned in the inscription. What is used instead are titles adopted by rulers Devampiya, often translated as beloved of the god, and Piyadasi or peasant to behold. The name Asoka is not mentioned in every inscription. Let's go for the second one, Ashoka's claim. Ashoka's claim is that the earlier ruler had no arrangement to receive reports. Historians have constantly assessed the statement made in inscription to judge whether they are true or not. So third one is king's communication. So uh, historians have to make their assessment well, and king's order were inscribed on natural rocks near the important routes, but people were most probably not literate, so the communication between king and his people was not that easy that time. Finding traces of inscriptions. The traces of inscriptions were basically found in present day Orissa, and the depicting his anguish is missing for now. Let's start with eight topic and limitations of inscriptional evidences. We have some 7 points here. Let's go through them one by one. Damaged inscriptions. So sometimes the inscriptions are damaged and many words lost due to the damage, hence we are not able to get the proper meaning. Second is engraved words. Sometimes the words engraved are very faint, hence it is very hard to decipher them. Third is difficulty in meanings. It is not easy to find out the real meaning of inscriptions. Sometimes the things stated in relevance to particular situation or time. Fourth is translation as a problem. Thousands of inscriptions have been found, but not all of them translated or can be understood. Fifth one is more to discover. There might have been many more inscriptions that were damaged or need to be discovered. Sixth one is no appropriate information. There is another basic problem. What is important today, both politically and economically, may not have been mentioned in inscriptions. For example, the inscriptions do not refer to agriculture or joy or sorrow of daily life. They describe only special grand occasions. And the seventh one is everything is actually not a ultimate truth. The inscriptions reflect the view of those who commissioned them, so we must critically analyze all the inscription to find the ultimate